Okay, so the enabler group today is going to focus on replacing and with a comma. So following the video, we're going to go through a few more examples that are going to explain to you how to remove and replace it with a comma and the situations in which you might do this. So example number 1, foxes eat chickens and ducks and other birds. So in this situation, because we are listing more than two things, we actually need to remove one end and replace it with a comma. In this case, we would replace the first end because we always finish our list with and the last item. So foxes eat chickens, ducks and other birds. Next sentence. Mrs. Graham is a kind and patient teacher. So while there is nothing wrong with this sentence, we could also replace and say Mrs. Graham is a kind, patient teacher. And the third example, I like ice cream and lollies too. So in this situation, there are two things to consider. The first one is that the second sentence starts with the word and we know that because and is a conjunction, it cannot be used to begin a sentence. So the first thing we can do is remove the full stop and turn end into a lowercase end. Let's have a look at the current sentence. I like ice cream and lollies too. In this situation, we don't need a comma because the sentence is completely fine the way it works. Okay, our second example. So for the core and extend group, we have koala bears are not actually bears, they're marsupials. So this is a very interesting example because most commonly what students will do is they will put a comma after bears to split the two ideas. So koala bears are not actually bears, they are marsupials. However, this is not grammatically correct. This is called a comma splice. And the reason why this is not grammatically correct is because these two thoughts are actually independent clauses. The only time this would work is if it's one sentence or one part of the sentence was independent and the other part of the sentence was dependent. But because these two thoughts are both independent, they actually cannot be separated just by a comma. We do need to add something called a subordinate. And the previous video from the mini lesson talks about what they are. We could also add a conjunction. So let's have a go at seeing what we can do. Koala bears are not actually bears. So they are marsupials. Maybe therefore they are marsupials. I think that's an appropriate word that we could use. Koala bears are not actually bears, therefore they're marsupials, or maybe even because they're marsupials. Okay, I think out of the three options, this one is the best one. So in this case, this is now correct because we've used a comma and a subordinate to balance the sentence out. Next one, although most people think koalas are bears, they are not actually marsupials. Okay, thinking back to the previous video that you would have watched, because the subordinate is at the beginning of the sentence, we know that the comma needs to be somewhere towards the middle of the sentence to balance the two ideas out on each side. So let's have a look at identifying the two different clauses. So although most people think koalas are bears, they are actually marsupials. Okay, so we will separate those two clauses with a comma. And last example, most people think koalas are bears even though they are categorized as marsupials. So in this last example, we don't need to add a comma because the subordinate is in the middle of the sentence and therefore it connects the two ideas together and it does not need a comma for it to make sense. So for your task, you're going to have a go at implementing this strategy when working with the different sentence examples.